Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Today, joined with Draft Professor JT Olson. JT spent some time looking at some safeties. So this is his first look at the safety class for this year's draft. So we're going to hear what his initial thoughts on the players are as JT is in the process of building his board. But JT, college football playoffs on tonight. We're getting ready for the draft. What else is going on in your football world?
I am mentally preparing myself for Michigan's new head coach to coach his final game at Alabama tonight. And, everybody moves on and everybody's happy. We welcome Kalen DeBoer to Ann Arbor. So I'm ready for that.
Cool. So you had, I don't know, I think I sent you like the list of like somewhere between 13 and 15 safeties that were grading high. Was Caleb Downs the highest graded safety that you looked at?
Yes, he's my safety one. But it wasn't without competition. There are a lot of good safeties in this class.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that there is a concentration of safeties that I don't think that I have ever seen before in a draft class. So
no, I'd absolutely agree with you on that. This is my
so out of
11th
curiosity,
year.
which safeties were close to Downs for you?
Let's see. I had a hard time kind of slotting them because they're all very different skill sets. But I really like Dylan Thiemann. I really like AJ Halsey, and I really like Jalen Husky. I think those three are all
Okay.
relatively close to Downs.
Okay. Oh, you see, and the fact that you're putting Husky in that category is getting me excited.
So, I liked Husky. I liked him a lot.
Well, why don't we start with Jalen Husky from Maryland? So, true story, I was watching Mel Kiper do an episode of First Draft. At this point, it was 3 months ago. And that was the first I had heard of Jalen Husky. Like, nobody talked about him during the summer scouting. He wasn't on the draft simulator. He wasn't on any of the player boards that anybody had sent me. Did a little bit of research. He was a corner that switched to safety. And then from there, I'm going to let you take it from there as to what you saw when you watched Jalen Husky from Maryland.
Yeah, I had no real background on him aside from him on the list you sent me. I tried to find, other opinions on him, and really no one's talking about him. I couldn't find him on anyone's top 10 list of safeties or anything. I'm not sure if the group who covered the safeties touched on him a whole lot, but I think Jalen Husky's really good, man. 6'2", 200 pounds. This is a guy who has the potential to be a really good single high safety. He breaks on the ball super well. He's got good ball skills. He's got the range. You do not see a lot of guys like this anymore. It feels like the single high safety, the true single high, is a little bit of a dying breed just because it's hard to find guys with that kind of range and that kind of ball skills. And you don't see Ed Reed anymore. I think the closest thing we have right now is Kirby Joseph. So to find a guy who legitimately has that skill set, it's pretty exciting. And he's not afraid to come up and support in the run. He comes up really fast. He comes up like a missile. He hurls his body at a ball carrier. I don't know if he's ever going to be a great run defender, and he could wrap up a little better. His angles can be a little iffy at times, but he's not afraid to come up and support and be physical. So, you get a guy who can take the ball away. You get a guy who can, range all over the field, and a guy who can at least have the want to support the run. That's a really good player, and I really like him for anyone who's looking to get that profile on their team.
Nice. And who's another? You mentioned AJ Halsey, and one of the other things I'd like to point out is how you said, like, you had, I don't remember how many players were on the list, but I'm going to say it's like 13 plus or minus. But AJ Halsey and Jalen Husky will not play the safety position the same way. So even though they're both safeties, they're not the same kind of safety, but they're both likely going to be drafted in the same range. So what do you like about AJ Halsey?
Yeah, really, they could not be more different. Where Husky is more of a Kirby Joseph type, AJ Hulsey is more like a Cam Chandler type, or who's that big white safety in Minnesota whose name I can't remember right now?
Is it Dirt? No, that's not Derwin James. That's Harrison Smith.
Harrison Smith, thank you. I think AJ Hulsey is more of that kind of profile. 6 foot, 222 pounds. It's a big dude, and he plays to his size. Big time hitter. He's an enforcer. LSU doesn't really use him as that box enforcer type because he is, fluid and he has good ball skills. So they use him, as a high safety a lot. But I think in the NFL, he really is going to be more of a come down into the box, lay the lumber, but also covers really well. If you're running a lot of zone, you do a lot of cover 3 stuff, a lot of cover 2 stuff. He's so fluid and he sinks his hips really well. He makes plays on the ball. He's a weapon in coverage. He's going to be a really disruptive zone player. And I don't think he's got top end speed. And I don't think he's the twitchiest guy. So I don't think you want to use him, man to man a ton. But if you are looking for a guy who is going to just rock people in the run and is a legitimately good cover player. I mean, LSU uses him as their high safety a lot because he's so fluid, because he's so intelligent, because he does make good breaks on the ball. I mean, all the things you can teach, he does really well. So I really see like a Cam Chancellor type, maybe not that kind of hitter because no one is, bam, bam, Cam, unless you're talking like John Lynch. But, I think AJ Hulsey is kind of cut from a similar cloth.
Nice. And you have him and Husky in the same range? Like same
Yeah.
tier and how you grade?
Yeah. So I have Husky a little bit higher on my board. But really, that's just going to be a stylistic thing. What are you looking for your defense? If you want that single high profile, you want Husky. If you want that run support, zone safety, then Hulsey's your guy. So it's just a stylistic preference on what you want there.
Okay. And then you put a third safety in that tier, and that was Dylan Thieneman from Oregon as well.
Absolutely. I have him above both those other guys. Thieneman, I think, is really, really good. Let me pull up his profile here. Where did I put my notes on Thieneman? Yeah, so 6 foot, 205. He kind of does it all. He's kind of a best of both worlds in some ways. He comes up as a run support player with a purpose. He is fast. He is physical. When he tackles a ball carrier, they do not make any more progress. They are done. They go to the ground hard. So he is a great run support player. I just love his physicality. Even when he's fighting through blocks and he doesn't get to the ball carrier, he's going to come up and pop a blocker. So I really like his intensity, his tackling, his physicality. This is going to be a really good run support player. But he's also going to be a really good coverage player. He has really good tools. I think he looks really fast. I think he looks very fluid. I think he breaks on the ball super well. This is a really awesome blend of coverage skills and run support. So I don't know. I probably prefer him in zone and like too high stuff more than anything. But really, I think he can do it all to different degrees of success. But I think he'll be successful in whatever you ask him to do. So where I had Kirby Joseph as my Husky comp and I had a Cam Chancellor type as my Hulsey comp, I kind of got a little bit of a Buda Baker or Eric Weddle from Thieneman. Someone who just does it all, is a good run player, is a good coverage player. He's just going to be successful no matter where you plug him.
Nice. And then you have Caleb Downs higher than those three, but you said it the margin isn't significant.
No, it's not nearly as wide as I expected because I've seen, Downs top 10 projected in mock drafts, but and for good reason. He's a really good player, and he's my safety one. But the gap was not nearly as large as I expected it to be, for sure.
Okay. So then Downs is off the board. Hulsey, Husky, Thieneman are off the board. Who's the best of the rest?
I probably have a tier of 4 with my next group, and my next highest rated is Kamari Ramsey. So let me pull him up. All right, so Ramsey, 6 foot, 206. In terms of coverage, I think he can do everything at a high level. I think he can play 2 high zone. I think he can play man to man. I think he can play nickel. He might even be able to do some single high stuff for you. The physicals, the coverage ability, it looks really good. He looks like a plus athlete. He comes up, he supports the run. There's a lot of things he does really, really well that I really, really like. So I think highly of Kamari Ramsey overall. But there were some issues I had with his tape that kind of put him below some of these other guys. Sometimes he comes up to support the run and he's right where he should be. And then the ball carrier will kind of shift gears or cut outside and it'll destroy Ramsey's angle and he'll take bad angles at times. And I don't think that's a physical tool thing. I think he's got all the speed to adjust and make a tackle. I just don't think he processes super quickly. You know, when a running back makes a little cut and it kind of breaks his ankle a little bit and he gets beat. And I feel like at times it takes him a little bit longer to process than I would like. He'll fall for the play action stuff. He'll fall for the fakes and, you know, he'll find his way into no man's land sometimes. So I think I would really love to be in a room on the whiteboard to see, you know, where his football IQ is, because I think there are times where I question it and, you know, how fast is he processing the game? And I don't know if that's an inexperienced thing or just a football intelligence thing, but when I see it, he gets beat, and it happens more often than I would want for a player who I think is really, really talented.
Okay. And then who are the other 3 safeties in the tier that you have with Kamari Ramsey?
So the other 3 are Emmanuel McNeil Warren, Michael Taffy. I'm going to go with Taffy. And actually a guy who wasn't on the list you sent me, but someone had actually watched when we did corners, and that was Xavier Scott.
Got it. Okay. Nice. So, and that's kind of cool also because some people are projecting Xavier Scott to either slot or safety. So it's interesting that you put him there. And I have a question. So you don't have Jalen Kilgore this high?
See, I have Kilgore as a linebacker. So I view him kind of outside my safety class.
Okay.
I can flip over to, I don't remember.
No, that's all right. That's all right. No, I was just thinking of what names was I expecting you to rattle off, and Kilgore not being in that top 8 surprised me.
Well, let me pull up the notes. I mean, we might as well talk about him since we're talking about him.
Yeah.
He's 6'1", 211, and he's got really good ball skills. I think he had 5 interceptions last year. I don't know where he ended up this year, but he's shown the ability to take the ball away. He's a willing tackler. So, I mean, these are all the profiles of a safety. South Carolina played him in the box a lot. And, you know, does that make him a box safety? Maybe. But I kind of viewed him as more of like a Pittsburgh Steelers Mark Barron type. Or was it Robert Spillane who played safety in college and moved to linebacker? Or Divine Diablo? Some of those bigger safeties that kind of project to linebacker, like a coverage linebacker in the NFL. I mean, he's kind of a nickel linebacker safety hybrid. So where you plug him and how you use him is kind of going to vary on the system and the coach. But he's someone I could understand why people would put him as a safety. But with the way he lines up in college, I mean, he's playing a lot of nickel and a lot of linebacker in my mind. So, you know, even if that makes him a box safety or a nickel linebacker / safety, you know, I don't view him as a pure safety like these other guys.
Got it. Yeah. So of those other 3 safeties, so you said Michael Taff, you said Emmanuel McNeil Warren, and I'm already flashing on the third name.
Xavier Scott.
So do they all play safety the same way?
No, I think Scott and McNeil Warren are kind of similar, but I think is it Taff? Because I want it to be Taffy in my head.
So I say Taft, but I have not done a pronunciation check on the player.
I prefer Taffy because that just feels more fun to me. But he's a little bit different. He's smaller. He plays some nickel, some single high. He's a different profile than those other two who are a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, can do, probably a different skill set.
So it's Taft.
Bummer.
At least according to Google's AI, it's Taft.
All right, we'll go with Taff if that's how it's said. But I'll probably call him Taffy throughout his entire career, just like I still call Chubba Hubba instead of Chuba Hubbard, because no one wants that. It's Chubba Hubba.
Yep. So how would you use Taft versus McNeil Warren?
Yeah. Taft's just smaller. He's 6 foot 180. 82 is what I had him listed at. And he's not the physical force that those other two guys are. He's more someone he's a high IQ player. He locates the ball really well. He's very assignment sound. He does come up fast and in control as a run defender, which I like. So he doesn't come up timid, even though he's a little bit leaner. And he's super refined. He's super technically sound. He's going to wrap up. He's going to try and make a good tackle, even though he doesn't have the thickness or the strength of some of these other guys. I think he's someone who can play some single high and some nickel. So he can play two high, he can play man. I think he's got a lot of versatility as a coverage player. I think he might not have the upside just in terms of, I think he's a good nickel and a option at single high, but I don't know if he's great at anything. And that's okay, because I want good players. And if you're not a great player, there's still a place for you on my team. So I kind of view him as kind of a Xavier McKinney light. He can do all of the things and he can do them well, but I don't think he's that kind of a talent.
Okay. And how about Emmanuel McNeil Warren? Because there's a lot of people that have a top 50 vibe around Emmanuel McNeil Warren. It sounds to me like you're a little bit lower than him being in your top 50.
I don't know that I am lower. I think there are safeties ahead of him, but that's really just a reflection of how highly I think of this safety class. I could absolutely see McNeil Warren being in my top 50 when it's all said and done.
Okay.
So, one, I really like the size. 6'2", 202. He's super light on his feet, a very bouncy athlete. He's fast. He comes up quickly in run defense. I think he's more of a two high safety. I don't think he has the range to be a single high safety. One thing that I love about him, he comes up, he's a good run defender. And he's someone he's shown the ability to consistently force fumbles over the course of his career. I think he had like 5 this year and like 7 in a previous year. He's got a history of forcing a lot of fumbles, and that's not by accident. So that's something I love about him. Even though he isn't like a ball hawk, he does find other ways to make splash plays. So I think he's going to be a really good player. I see a lot of similarity between his game and a guy like Antoine Winfield Jr. Too high, you send him on the blitz, he makes plays, and he's a good football player. So I think someone's going to get a starter with him. If not as a rookie, then probably by year 2. I think he's going to be a pretty much a plug and play kind of guy.
Okay. And then did you get to Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, and Bud Clark, or did you not have a chance to watch all of those guys?
So I did watch all 3. I didn't go as in-depth on Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb because I'd watched them previously when I was previewing Alabama. So it was just kind of a refresher for those two. But I did get eyes on all 3 this week.
Okay. Now, I have Hubbard in my head as being a box safety, and Sabb as being more of a all around safety. You can do, too high, send him into the box. But what is your overall profile of Keon Sabb?
No, I'd agree with that. I'd say he's a better athlete than Hubbard. I think he can do more on the back end, maybe some single high, some two high. I definitely think he has more range than a guy like Hubbard. Um, I don't think he's as good of a football player, though. I think he's a better athlete, so that there comes with a higher degree of upside. But I think he is not living up to all of the sum of his parts. So I think he's got potential. I don't think he's a terrible player. I think he's a depth player in the NFL at this point. But there's something there to work with. There's something there to develop. Maybe like in the way that like a Jordan Whitehead was developed a few years ago with the Buccaneers after being drafted in the fourth round. He eventually became an impact player on a Super Bowl team. But right now, I think he's definitely a depth player with potential.
Okay. And then Bud Clark has a cult following. There are people that they just see. Like I remembered seeing Bud Clark on the first week of the season. It was TCU against North Carolina, and he took a pick to the house. Like he showed up, right? And he has more plays like that on film, but he's not necessarily the athlete that the other guys that we've mentioned are. But what is your overall assessment of Bud Clark?
Yeah, I won't be in that cult following, I'll be honest. Of the guys I watched, he was the one I was least impressed with. So I have him below Sab. So he's a depth player for me. And I don't think he's a terrible athlete. He's 6'2, 185. So, he's lean, but I think he's got some ball skills to work with. I think he's got speed and acceleration to work with. But I'm just not sure where he hangs his hat in the NFL. I don't think he has that real want to as a run defender. He comes up, but I don't think he wants to hit. He just goes there to be in position and maybe chip in for a tackle if he has to. But I don't see someone who's coming up to lay the lumber by any means. I don't think he's got top tier explosiveness to be used as someone on the blitz or to sink his hips and break on the ball. So even though he has ball skills, he's got good hands. I don't think he's someone who can put himself in a great position to make plays on the ball because I think he is a little bit limited in that twitch department. And, I wish he was just a little more twitched up and more explosive for a guy who's 185. I think he's got speed and some agility to work with. Just he's not that top tier athlete in terms of explosiveness. So I think that does limit him as a zone player. And I just think he's a career backup for me. I don't ever see him developing into a starter, maybe a spot starter, but this will not be a Bud Clark fan account.
Okay. And just to give you an idea, JT, right? Because when we were deciding like what players for you to watch, talk about, I sent you 12, but when we were covering scouting reports, we covered 33 and 28 of them came by with draftable grades. So
yeah,
you haven't even hit half the safety class, but you've definitely got the top end of it. So
yeah, it's a really impressive top end. Like just looking at some of these names, Down, Thieneman, McNeil, Warren, Ramsey, Hulsey, Taffy, Husky. I think those are all guys who could be in my top 50. That's like 6, 7, 8-ish safeties. So I think really, really highly of this safety class.
So a couple more. I'm just going to drop a couple names. If you're like, Jim, you should have given me that name. So I'll give them to you now. But VJ Payne from Kansas State would probably be like in the next tier of players. I'm guessing you're going to have him graded higher than Bud Clark. And if you like a box safety, that's VJ Payne. So he's going to be a box safety.
I grew up watching John Lynch play. I love a box safety.
Yes. Okay, so somebody playing now for Oklahoma is Robert Spears Jennings. So I would definitely add him to the next tier of players to watch.
Okay, I have to just say, you gave me this long list and you left off Payne and Spears as potential players. I mean, on name alone, those are worth my time watching.
Yep. Miles Scott from Illinois. Likely again going to be he's been ejected from a couple of games. So but Miles Scott from Illinois will be like a box safety as well.
And that's not Xavier Scott from Illinois? Those are not the same person?
No, two different players.
Okay.
So there's two Scotts. Yeah. Xavier Scott
safeties on
is
Illinois.
a corner. Miles Scott is a safety. Now, Xavier Scott projects to safety at the NFL level, but he played corner for Illinois.
Okay.
I'm looking. Jalen Catalon theoretically is in this draft class. He was actually one of the guys we didn't podcast on. And then somebody everybody likes, but is probably returning to school, is Genesis Smith from Arizona.
That's another cool name, Genesis. I like it.
Yep. So those are some other names. I still left off a whole bunch. So for example, in the summer, we had top 50 grade on Terry Moore from Duke, but he's been injured and he has missed the entire season. So the issue is, do you come into the draft, like if you're Terry Moore, do you come into the draft or do you try to enter next year's draft as a defensive back that's a year older? I think if the last draft showed me anything, it's you're better off coming into the draft the year you're injured and being young. Because as soon as you're like a 23-year-old defensive back, you're going to move down about 45 spots on the draft board. Because NFL teams want the 21-year-olds. They don't want the 23 or the 24-year-olds, especially at safety and corner.
With the NIL, maybe a nice college team will come, here's $1 million, come play on our back end.
Yep. But anyway, so I am anxious to see if Terry Moore declares for the draft. He has been injured all season, but if he's healthy, he easily would be in the top 100. Like, there's no doubt. And it would be more of a conversation of, is he in that first tier of players that JT mentioned? Kind of thing. So those are definitely some names to look out for.
Did anyone cover Brandon Hillman from Michigan at all at any point in the process?
No.
Okay. I don't think he's coming out. He's definitely an enforcer and a tone setter, but probably a year away from being a good player. So he's one who I think is on my radar as a future prospect as a safety. So if you like physicality, he's top shelf.
So TJ Metcalf of Michigan was covered, and he would likely project to the slot, I think, is what I think I heard EJ say, because EJ did a slot episode several Thursdays ago where he was talking about Jalen Kilgore and Harold Perkins playing the same position. Right, so one's a linebacker, one is a safety, but they're essentially both going to be nickels at the NFL level, kind of thing. TJ Metcalf of Michigan falls into that category as well. So I have him like on the simulator, he's listed as a safety, but at the NFL level, he may project more to the slot.
Yeah, let's get Kalen DeBoer in here. He'll coach him up, and next year he'll be a player.
Yeah.
As his team is getting railroaded by Oklahoma.
So as soon as we are done podcasting, I am going to sit down and enjoy the last part of the college football playoff. So JT, overall, when you're looking at the safeties, out of the 11 guys that you've talked about, do you think 9 of them are in the top 100?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, 9 is a good number.
So it's right because the over-under is like 8.5, right?
Yeah, that's like the perfect number because 8 is right where I'd say yes. I definitely think these guys go top 100, and then kind of Bray Hubbard is that make or break guy on my list here, and I really think he could sneak in back of round 3, but I would probably project him as a early mid round 4 player.
Yep. And that sounds about right because safety, from a positional standpoint, in the draft is devalued. Like if a team has to fix edge or safety, they're probably going to do edge. If they have to fix offensive line or safety, they're probably going to even do guard over safety. I think safety, the only position that could be lower than safety is running back, but I might even say running back is higher than safety on some teams. Like what is going to have more impact? So day 3 safeties play a lot of special teams. So as long as a safety you can play special teams, you're going to have a spot in the NFL draft. It's just not going to come until day 3 kind of thing. So, and I think on average, it's between 17 and 20 safeties get drafted. And this year, I think I'm smashing the over on the 20. This year, I think it's going to be a lot higher. So,
yeah, I'll have to look at some of those later end names, but I mean, just the top end alone. I mean, there's slam dunk going to be a really good deep safety class.
Yep. So, JT, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Do you want to tell everybody about your Buccaneers podcast and the other draft content you make?
Yeah, all my written work is over at bucksreport.com, covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I also do a podcast with fellow draft professor Andrew Harbaugh. It is the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. We have not had pleasant things to say about the Buccaneers as of late. I know Andrew's been putting out a lot of content with mock drafts. So, we are semi-preparing for draft season as we play for our playoff lives this Sunday. And then I've been here every Friday since the summer, 9:15, covering running backs, corners, defensive linemen, tight ends, now safeties. Getting my board filled out pretty well here.
Yeah, so what part of your board isn't filled out the most?
I have not looked at a single quarterback yet, so that's definitely the least.
Okay, and what position's the second least? Because I can understand as a Buccaneers fan, you're not in the quarterback market, so that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll have Baker for at least one more year, and then we'll kind of see how it goes. But after that, I need to do some work on this receiver class. I've seen only 4, and that's Jordan Tyson, Denzel Boston, Jacoby Lane, and Chris Bell, who I all like them all a lot. So this is looking like another good position, wide receiver, safety, corner. From what I've seen, those are the in-depth position. Those are all really deep, talented positions. So I'm probably going to do that one next.
Cool. Well, yeah. So if you wanted to do wide receivers next week, I don't know that we're podcasting on Friday night next week. JT's got to check his schedule because that's December 26th. So I'm gonna give a plug for a couple of things. So first, if you are watching this podcast on a Friday night, starting in January on Fridays, this time slot will have a live mock draft with 32 people picking for 32 teams every Friday. It's usually a different group of people drafting each Friday. Some of the names are the same, but I will try to encourage there to be differences so that I'm going to quote unquote, everybody gets a turn. So JT may draft for the Buccaneers one week, but we want to see somebody else's opinion of what the Buccaneers will do the week after. And all of this culminates to a really large 7-round mock right before the draft. So we will have a 3-night mock. We're going to go 7 rounds, and that's going to be later in the draft process. But the reason I say that is that if you want to participate in the 7-round mock at the end, you definitely want to participate in the earlier mocks as well. Name recognition helps, especially when it comes time to working trades with the other teams. They know who you are because you've been here before. So You will start to see the mock draft schedules. The best way to find the schedule, go to NFL Draft Fanatic on Twitter and look at the pinned post, look at the reply to the pinned post, and that reply has a spreadsheet that you can sign up to mock draft for your team. I also want to give a shout out to JT, as you said, JT, you've been podcasting every Friday since August. I, as the person that runs Draft Professor, appreciate that because we can't put the content out without people like JT volunteering their time. JT's watching game film and then coming on the podcast and telling us what he saw. So I appreciate all the work that you're putting in. All the Draft Professors appreciate all the work that you're putting in. So thank you very much. So, you have anything else you want to share, or are we going to close down the podcast?
No, I just can't emphasize enough how impressed I am with this safety class. I really think this could be like the 2012 linebacker class where you got, Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly and Levante David, just Demario Davis, just Hall of Fame caliber-ish players throughout the draft. I really think, I don't know if, we'll get multiple Hall of Famers, but I think you're going to get 5, 6, 7 impact players who have Pro Bowl potential at some point in this safety class. So I can't say how impressed I am with it enough. Just really, really good, top to bottom.
Yep, and I'm sitting here making a list of wide receivers that you should look at. But like I said, I appreciate everybody that is watching the podcast here on a Friday night. So wherever you are in the world checking this podcast out, on behalf of the 110 Draft Professors, for JT, for myself, and everybody at the Draft Professor, have a happy new year. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow morning, everybody.